Jeff Beckham, Jeffrey Beckham Jr. These are all popular names, especially in Chicago. This is Inspire More Life podcast. We have Jeff Beckham Jr. Give us a little bit of your history.
Yeah, so Jeff Beckham Jr., a native son of the South Side of Chicago. I tell people I'm a social impact entrepreneur, which means that I build things, mechanisms, systems, and processes to make the community better. That currently looks like working as CEO of Chicago Scholars, a 30-year-old college access program that helps first generation and low income students get to and through college at 4 to 6 times the national average. It's also co CEO of Reach Pathways. We actually took Chicago Scholars curriculum and turned it into an AI based tool so that young people anywhere could access it. And when I'm not doing all those things, I'm an artist, an acrylic and oil painter whose work has been represented on film and TV and around the globe.
Wow. So this, first of all, amazing resume and journey you've been on. But like when I'm thinking about it, and I've known your name for years and we've been able to connect
Yeah.
recently, but I've heard your name in the ecosystem of Chicago and I'm like, man, like this is such a successful individual. But when I think about that, especially being, my family's from Gary, I moved out when I was young, but Gary, you talk about Chicago.
Yeah.
How do you get or grow into the level of success you're at? And that's a massive question. So let's start back then. Like, where did this start? Did it start as you becoming an artist? Did it start as you becoming a businessman? Where did your journey start?
Yeah, it started as actually me loving tech as a kid. My dad was a technologist, always was messing with video AV. We talked about like I learned how to wire mics and cameras when I was like 7 years old. And that really birthed a love for technology in me. I was 9 years old and I remember I asked my dad, like, how are video games made? And he was like, I don't know, son, but we'll figure it out. And the one thing about my parents, they always encouraged play in a positive manner. So my dad, figured out how video games were made. He started teaching me how to code when I was 12. I learned how to code when I was 12. So it started in technology. Did that through high school, went to college for management information systems at the University of Missouri Columbia. Came back home after internships and had a mentor who told me that I was really good with people and a really effective communicator and that I should try sales. So now you pivot from like I'm thinking I'm going to be an engineer, building systems and process to working in sales, and that actually taught me a lot of my people skills. So the birth of like this idea of technology and working with people started at a very young age, encouraged by my parents.
First of all, I always love this because I see a commonality with successful people a lot of time. And yes, you can be successful without good parents, but having parents who invest into their children's ideas, futures, and skill set, it is so important. And you're kind of a product of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even art, right? My dad could draw, so as a child, I would mimic his sketches. He would sketch Black History figures in charcoal, and I learned how to do that almost identically, mimicking him. And so they always encouraged that, whether it was the classes they put me in, from tennis to golf to basketball to art classes to learning how to sew as a kid, like all these creative pursuits and these things to kind of build skills was the way my parents looked at life, and they wanted to make sure my sister and I both had as many skills as possible.
Is that one thing that people probably get confused about you? Is like you're an artist, but they're like, they don't know how
Yeah.
tech background you are and how heavily, and that probably makes you a dynamic or just a special type of artist that probably thinks about art in such a different way with that background. Do you see it that way?
100%. I apply so much technology and like tech bases in my artwork, from how I use like symmetry and shapes to color theory and even layering as a process, right? My brain, when I'm thinking about a piece, I think about it like layers in Photoshop or Canva. Like what is the alignment of these layers? How can they stack on one on top of another? And how can we create some symmetry in the composition? So although I'm not classically trained as an artist, I'm classically trained as a designer, and the design work comes into a lot of the artwork that I create. But it's funny you mentioned it too. It's like this idea of like who you are in like a box, right? Like I think folks have done that to me a long time. For a long time, I was the guy who threw parties, which is how I knew everybody in my 20s and 30s. And then in the 30s, it was the website guy and the guy who built the sites and the apps for everybody. And now it's the artist. And I like to represent hope that I show young people, people out there, and you can be all of these things. The quote is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but they never finish that quote. It's a master of many is better than a master of one.
Mm. Where is that quote usually said?
You hear it oftentimes in just like traditional American like colloquialism. People talk about being a jack of all trades, and they use it
No,
in
the
a
second one.
negative.
Where do you usually hear the second one? Because
They never finish it.
I don't know if I've really ever heard the
It's part of
second
the
one.
same
Wow.
quote. It's the
Okay.
same quote,
That's real.
but no one finishes it. And I can't attribute who the quote's from. Actually, I've never looked at like who said that. But it is funny that they never finish that quote. And it's to encourage people not to be so broad that they're shallow, which I understand. But I think that we all have capacities as humans to be good at many things. You're good at many things, right? So we have to start to encourage that more. And I think in the world we live in now, because of the tools we have where we can do things more rapidly, it gives us more capacity to do more.
In that process, though, I think it's like everyone's trying to do everything at the same time. In
Yep.
your journey, it looks like you took decades to work out some things and become some
Exactly.
things. So, how would you speak into that? Or would you say, if you're an artist, an event curator, an entrepreneur, doing it all as one, is that possible? Or would you take the track of, hey, 7 years dedicated to your art, 7 years dedicated to the event curation? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think I go in like spurts and waves. So there was a period in time where I was so locked in and becoming the best salesman I could be. That was 23 to 33. And then I started throwing events in 2005. I was 25, and 25 to 35, I did events really well.
You
And
did
then
those at the same
and
time,
we did those at the same
sales
time.
and events.
Right. And so when I was like off work after work, we were meeting about what we were going to do in the city, whether it was, 4 sold out events at House of Blues, whether it was bringing foreign exchange, the Robert Glasper here for concerts. Like all of those things are things I was able to do as part of this kind of work. And I also use a lot of transferable skills. Selling was great. It taught me how to talk to people, convince people to do things, use the power of influence, the art of negotiation, art of no, and understanding what no is, and really like negotiating through no's. And those were so directly applicable at the time to the event thing. When you're going out, you're talking to somebody, convincing them, that the value you're providing at your event and the features you have at your event will provide value to them to get them through the door. Or convincing a owner of a spot, a restaurant, a bar, club, whatever, to let you have an event in their venue. You got to be able to sell. You got to be able to negotiate. And so those at the time really married between the two. And I think in the same way now, art and leading Chicago scholars in both reach, there is a direct transfer of skill set from how like, I see art and how it pours into how I have to lead in this current environment that we're living through.
What were you selling to begin with? What was that first selling product that you had the experience with?
Yeah, so I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I
Okay.
sold Allegra, Keytech, Nasacort AQ, right? Like big allergy brands, and then moved up and went into diabetic specialty and I sold insulin. So people are often shocked that I know as much about healthcare as I do. It came from years of training because when you train on pharmaceutical products, you're literally going through a mini, not med school, but you know enough about the product, both the pharmacokinetics and dynamics of the product and the way it interacts with the body, that you are the expert on that. You read studies, you learn for months on end before you're allowed to go out to talk to a doctor. And I ended in that work doing selling IVF. So I actually sold in vitro drugs for women trying to have families, trying to have children, and did labs as well. So Quest and LabCorp. So I was in that space for a long time. I learned a lot about it, pivoted out of that space actually into tech. Was a sales engineer for a company called Atlas Medical, where I was designing systems, healthcare systems. So you started like there are threads if you like listen to like this idea of building systems, using sales skills, convincing folks to do something, using influence. All that still shows up in what I do now. Those skills were just exceptionally foundational for what I've been able to build on top of.
The money aspect of
Yeah.
it, right? You did sales. Was that when you were doing sales from 25 to 33 or from 22 to 33? Were you doing sales and were you doing event creation because of the financial opportunities there, or was it mainly because of the passion for it as well?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked that. So the biggest reason was because my friends and I wanted to go out, and when we were going out at the time, we didn't see events that we liked to go to. There were things in Chicago back then, and the nightlife in Chicago was like really weird. It was either extra pretentious, where like you couldn't get in if you were young and didn't have a lot of money, or it was super like little ratchet. Like I wasn't, so there were these venues, large venues that had these massive parties that really wasn't a good fit for me and my group of friends. And so we started throwing them. Friends who liked good music, who liked to put on nice clothes, who wanted to go out. So it was more about the passion for that. That actually turned into more around passion of like gathering people and building community. As I got older, I realized like what I loved about it wasn't the party aspect, it was getting people together to build community.
Yeah.
So I still do that, like whether it's an art show or an event I'm holding through Chicago Scholars or an event we're doing dinners that we curate to get folks together of like-minded thought or trying to accomplish goals. It's not necessarily the parties anymore, but it's the same energy.
Did you leverage capital from like sales to put into events, or did you have a different model with events where they both were profitable right away and then you kind of invested that into your art? How did you kind of look at the financial components when moving around things?
It's yeah. So when we started, it was a group of five of us that had a building we owned together. So it allowed us to decrease our expenses personally. We could put money that we were making in our jobs, and we all had really good jobs at the time to put into event curation. So today, a lot of guys do it full time, and young women do it full time. We didn't take that approach. We were still working jobs, all of us. Like one person was at the IRS, one was a teacher, one was an engineer, one was a lawyer. I was a sales rep. So we would do these big events when we got bonus checks, and we would take our bonus checks, put up the money for the event, pay everything on the front end, and then we made our money on the back end. And that was a really solid strategy. You know, what we didn't realize at the time, and this is where like I encourage young people now, like as you're thinking about growth, begin with the end in mind. Think about where you really want to go with it. Like we had enough talent in our collective group to be an agency. Most of the young people, young men that I was working with at the time and women all went on to do like really crazy, amazing things throughout the country. We say it now, we should have put our heads down and we could have built a 1035 or a Leo Burnett. Back then, we were doing activations, marketing, brand, social media, web and graphic design for companies and brands. We just never thought of it in a way to do it at like scale. And I don't think we thought of it because we didn't go into it with that as the intention. We just wanted to get our friends together.
Yeah.
But now what I push young people to do is think like, what is the biggest version of this? What could this turn into? Think about that, and then your steps may be different along the way as you're doing whatever you're doing to get ultimately to that goal of the big thing you want to get to.
So many brands, companies are investing sponsorships, putting up
Yeah,
money. There's so much money going into like being on the advertisement or the flyer for an event or something
yeah,
like that. Just activations or things like that. There's a big profit there, even now, you know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Let alone throughout the decade that, you were doing it as well. So
And these years
100%.
of like the micro influencer community that brands are using more of because they realize people want to be connected. They want to know what you use, not yeah, I can see athlete XYZ or entertainer XYZ, but I know you. I know how you show up. I know you're well dressed. Yeah, and the power of social media and AI allows you to really curate personalized experiences for end users so that when I log in, I'm seeing your content using a particular product and I know how you show up. And hey, as a man, okay, I want to have that. I want to do that same product that my friend uses. Okay, great. And I think back then was the start of that when they were working with promoters or local event curators. You started to see where the shift was moving. We started in that. We worked with a lot of brands back in the day when we started that helped launch some of their really, I mean, now national global products. We weren't asking for a lot of dollars back then. We'd ask them to cover a DJ, not realizing that that was a drop in the bucket for
Yeah.
them to get access to the 2 or 3 thousand people we were bringing out a month, rotating through the city of Chicago. It was a win for the brand. Now, knowing what I know now, I tell people think about the bigger thing, think about what this could be at scale, and then plan accordingly.
Where I have two questions in my head right now. Where is the curve going right now? And how do you know the right price to ask someone
Yeah.
if you just don't know the game?
It's funny. I'll start with that second question. I had a mentor tell me long time ago. First, be able to calculate what your expenses are and whatever you're doing. So whether for me it's art or public speaking, I'm big on thinking about what if all of the paid in capital that I put in is time, travel, the cost of me writing content, the cost of my materials. And then for me, I typically do a 4 to 5x multiplier on that, whatever that total is. It gives me to a solid number, right? And even back then, we talked about like how do we charge a company to come in and advertise in our space? Well, we look at what the value is, how much is the bar ringing, how many people are walking through the door, how many people are opening our emails. Calculate that all up, and if the brand wants to be part of that, then put a significant number on it that makes it worth your while. The mentor said very clearly, he was like, you can always go down. You can't go back up. So I tell people now, start with something that's meaningful and significant for you, where you're not paying yourself minimum wage. Fun story, when I started building websites, man, I think the first website we did out the gate, me and my former business partner, we might have charged, it was a family reunion website. I think we charged at $300. The website took like 25 hours worth of work. You do the math on 300 divided by 25, right? We're talking below minimum wage. That is not effective. That's not even market rate. So then when we went and we grew a little bit and we got to like our 30th website, we weren't charging that anymore. We started looking at market rate and we're like, we're doing market quality work. We're doing enterprise level work. You're getting a project manager, a designer, a back end developer. We're doing architecture, all of these things that enterprise firms charge. We got to charge enterprise near rates. Now, we always wanted to target the small business community, particularly in the Black and brown South and West sides of the city. So we had to say to ourselves, like, they're not going to be able to pay $50,000 for a website. So how can we make this affordable? Well, we can drop some costs, we can template some things out, we can make it affordable and reasonable, and we figured out how to do that. So we could give near enterprise quality work at a third of the fraction of the price. Made us really successful in building websites. And we were fair with folks, but we were real on that. Like, this is our best price, like out the gate. Can't go down because we're showing you, go shop and see what you're going to get compared to this, and we'll stay there. It's also how I think about my artwork. I price at a reasonable level for the same reason. I want people from our community to be able to collect my artwork. If I'm pricing them out at the start, then what am I really doing this for? And I think that's what has allowed me to grow and get to 3,000 collectors in 5 years of painting. It's because I've been reasonable and I've been fair and I've thought about how to bring people in. And it's why, other organizations and brands are reaching out to use my artwork. It's been very cool, but I think the building a market demand to try to create a tipping point has been a strategy that I've used in parties, at Chicago Scholars, with Reach, and now with my artwork.
When did you start to build websites? What part of the journey is that in? Because we got the medical,
Yeah,
we got the event. Was that at that time or was
in the
that
middle.
after?
So in 2010, I was downsized for the first time. So you hear about the things that happened. It was bad economy, the housing market was Obama was trying to fix it, right? And was let go at the job that I had at the time. I called my parents up. Again, these narratives of parents and mentors and my best friend, and both of them said the same thing. They're like, well, you've done this website thing. You've been helping people with this for a long time. Why not do
Just for
that?
fun,
Just for fun, just general.
tech and
I was
okay.
building sites for homies that had, new barbershops. And I actually had a doctor one time reach out to me. He knew I could build sites. I was talking to him about tech in the office, and he had opened a pizza spot. And he was like, will you help me with this? And so that kind of turned into a pivot of building websites, which I did from 2010 to 18. And that got me really heavily involved in the tech community in Chicago. So now events are starting to sunset. I'm doing web design, mobile app design, integrated marketing and communications.
You're
So
done with your career in medical.
done with my career in
You're not even
medical,
looking to go back.
not looking to go back, pivoted into tech, and was doing mostly tech and IT consulting for small businesses and some hospitals, but it was more on like the technical aspects of what they're doing, not selling pharma or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I love how you allow people to speak into your journey, whether it's your
Mhm.
parents, your mentors. How do you find mentors?
Yeah, so it's funny. My friends say that I haven't found a leadership program I haven't said no to yet, and that's true. I've been part of New Leaders Council, which is a progressive leadership program. I had a mentor there. I did the Impact Leadership Development Program through the Chicago Urban League in Booth. My mentor there is the reason why I'm at Chicago Scholars, Dr. William Towns. I'm now an alumni of the Obama Leadership Program. Did that last year, 24 and 25. Again, got a coach out of that program who's helped me think about what the future looks like for me. As I say, I'm moving from this role of fierce warrior to trusted advisor. Like, how do I systematize that to make sure that the process and the things that I've learned will live on beyond me? And in all of those programs, I was fortunate enough to have like a really sound mentor or coach provided. But in just everyday life too, man, I've been big on walking up to people who I've admired and respected and ask the question, like, how did you do XYZ? Lester McCarroll and Phil Beckham, two men that are older that I love and respect and admire, who are not significantly older, but older enough where like they've just charted this path. And Lester helped me structure Black Box, which was my tech business. When I started, I was struggling to figure out how to grow it, how to scale it. And he sat down and was like, "You need a project manager. You need this. You need to add these things so that your process improves and you can get better. You can get out of the weeds of administrative work and really run the company and then have someone who can do the admin work to your developers and designers." It was Phil who really, gave me the first real shot in doing more consulting work when we had what's called, we had an organization called the Mid-South Business Association and Resource Center. It was a Chicago neighborhood business development center that I got to work on as a consultant because of Phil and that team. And so it's always been people who I've walked up to and just asked for help that have helped me. I realize as a black male, that is actually something we really struggle with. Because we're taught as black men, in particular in Chicago, this is and Gary, same kind of idea, hard hat, lunch pail, we put it on our backs, we do it ourselves. I think that that's actually a false expectation we're creating in our communities where we think we have to do everything on our own. And you can't get anywhere rapidly, nor without bumps and significant bruises by trying to do it by yourself. And so the one thing that I've been consistent at and continue to do is provide help to younger people or people who ask me for it and continue to seek it as I'm growing and trying to pursue certain things in my life and my career as well.
People will argue that when they go up to someone that they're not receiving that reciprocation. Maybe they're like hounding them down. They're trying to like do so. Like, is it when you approach them? Are they usually receptive, or is there a level of consistency and following up that you have to do in order to make sure you get put in the right
So the
position?
first thing is I ask for permission. So typically, if I don't know the individual, I'll reach out over email or LinkedIn first. So even before I see them to ask, and then I usually typically follow up with whether that's whatever they tell me to do through their assistant or email or a call. And I don't get discouraged when I strike out the first time. I might have struck out the first time on everybody that I named, except for even the ones that were like given to me through programs. Like
Mhm.
it's like, yo, I know they're busy. Everybody building things. So you got to show that you're hungry and you want it. I speak a lot to kids around the country, young people, young adults. I tell them all the time, if you add me on LinkedIn, here's my email. If you reach out, I'll spend some time with you. I get less than a 2% return on that. And I think it's for the very reason you said. Like, A, people get discouraged when you don't get the response on the first try. They quit, they give up. Second, there's an apprehension to it. But most successful people who who care about community and care about our city in particular that we're in, and young folk will spend time. You just got to do the legwork. So when I do it and I finally get that on the calendar, I send an agenda before I meet with them. Here are the things I want to discuss. I might send my bio on my resume so they know who I am before we walk into it, because I don't
Mm,
want to assume that they know me.
yeah.
And that has been the most successful way to build mentoring relationships and also keep them. But I also show up. The other thing too is when you go into it, don't go into it with what you're gonna get from them. Go into it where you think about it as how can you be additive to these individuals. So for a long time, whether it's me volunteering or showing up at initiatives they were doing, I did that well before there was an ask made up from me. And then they asked, well, what do you need? They'll ask you, and you get to that point of trust in the relationship. Now you got it. You got them locked in, and maybe at the time it's nothing. I remember I met Shane Evans decades ago. I spoke at his school when he was University of Chicago Charter School principal, and I would speak at his schools, stayed in contact, watched him start Academy Group, the social impact investment fund and nonprofit that helps thousands of kids. And I watched it and I was like, man, I want to do that one day. I wasn't a CEO yet. When I got the Chicago Scholars as vice president of partnerships, I reached out to Shane. I said, I got this role. I want to be great at it. Will you help me? He said, sure. We sat down and had coffee. 2 years in, when the previous CEO stepped down and the board asked me to step in as interim and consider taking on the role as CEO, I went and it was the height of COVID. Shane met me. We sat outside on Wabash Avenue, had food. He helped me through what the process was going to look like and how do you prepare for a CEO interview. So I got the role. 3 years later, again, Shane comes back around. He's trying to think about how they can use tech to scale what they're doing at Academy Group, which is really outstanding work. I told him, I've got an idea for you. You should see Reach. So Shane got to see Reach before it was really fully built. His team came on and got a dynamic team of young leaders there. It helped us co-build it. Now, not only is Academy Group a customer of Reach, they're the co-lead investor who invested in our $2 million seed round. So it didn't start with me going to Shane and asking for investment. That relationship started when I was 22 years old.
Yeah. That's a powerful process of how things are building. And there's no age limit to when you accumulate mentors. You're still accumulating mentors
All the
even
time.
at your level of success.
All the time. Especially, I mean, I've got younger mentors. I think that the thing that we get stuck in our head is that there has to be like this temporal convergence, and it's not. When I started painting, the guys who helped me and got me off the ground painting were younger than me. Rico the Great, Arvell Jamal, Dwight White, my impact classmate Jennifer Hodges, my girl Kristen C. Williams. Like all of them were either my age or younger, but they had all been painting decades. And so when I started, I was new. I sat with Rico and he taught me how to stretch canvas, him and Arvell. Kristen told me to use better brushes, that the brush investment matters so that you can use less paint. And that still sticks with me. I remember her quote, every brush stroke matters. Dwight let me be part of one of his large scale, amazing shows, Something I Can Feel. And I had pieces of artwork in this show that had hundreds of people in it over the course of a couple weeks. Like all of these folks, all of them. Jennifer walked me into her studio and just kind of taught me about basic process. I remember her thing was stop buying all this paint because I would buy a ton of paint and just keep it, let it sit there. Every one of them.
Does networking matter? Like, do you think of all this as networking?
I
Or
think,
do you have another word for it where it doesn't feel so networky?
yeah, I think we get networking and it gets very transactional, right? So I call it building community. You and I, we first met, it was social.
Yeah.
And we talked socially. And then we were like, you're doing what? You're doing what? You invited me to come on the show. But the first thing we did was social. It was like, hey, you're good people. And we have mutual friends who, like, you guys don't know each other. You need to know each other, like, beyond the surface. That has always been my approach to how I meet people, which is why I really do invest time to know people. I want to know how they're doing, what they're doing, where I can be helpful, where I can add value, and then I try to do that. I give probably 100 pieces of art away a year to different nonprofit organizations for auction items, CGLA. I mean, I just go through the list, many scholarship organizations, big, small, middle, otherwise, because they're friends in the network who have either supported my work or they have an initiative that supports the broader community that I'm trying to be part of.
Yeah. First of all, this is an amazing conversation, and I appreciate you coming on the show,
course.
having this conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time. So we got a few more questions that I have for you. So we'll just rally them off. Chicago. I just wanted you to speak to Chicago and how important it has been for you to just build out of Chicago because, I think sometimes you want to go global and you're doing that. Like you're going places now. And I don't know if you did that at the start, but you leveraged or you just sat in Chicago and built your community out. Can you speak to that real quick?
Yeah, I started here. This has always been home, foundational place for me. My family's here. My roots and DNA is here. And I love this place. As hard as it can be, is as great as it can be as well. And it always will be home for me. Whether I'm in Paris or wherever I'm at, I will come back here. This will be home. And it's the community that supported me the most, whether it's the first piece of art I sold on my first show, or even now when I'm in Atlanta, people from Chicago come to my show there. They're like, I live here now, I'm coming. I know you're from home. Yeah, we're gonna be there. We're showing up. And it's just that kind of love and encouragement that I've gotten from here that's so very special. And I think is what makes this place really special.
What is this statement that sometimes people need to leave Chicago to become great just to come back and kind of like solidify their greatness? Is there any truth to that? Or, it looks like you've been able to build a level of success here, but did you have to leave in your journey and come back or do anything of that nature?
I think my leaving was going to Mizzou for undergrad. And then trying to figure out if I wanted to come back here after. So I tried to go to Nashville and Atlanta, these other places, and then I ended up back here. But those 4 years away really did make me love this place more. I think what's necessary in going away isn't about what you build. It's about how you feel about this place when you come back, the parts that you want to do. Even our stars who live other places always come back.
Yes.
They always come back. They always do something here. It's a special place. And I think that it's necessary sometimes to spread your wings and go other places, to expand that network, to meet new people. Obviously, there's certain industries that aren't as prevalent here. If you want to do entertainment and music, you can, but it's better going to LA or going to Atlanta, going to New York. I think that it's a necessary part of the journey. We tell young people at Chicago Scholars, like one of the schools they have to pick as they apply for their what we call our CS5 is one that's out of state.
Mm.
We want young people to go and explore. And if you stay in state, go study abroad. Spend time away, significant time away, so that you understand and value what you actually have here.
What is Chicago really great for when championing talent? So if it's not entertainment or music, what is it known for when creating talent or really championing that skill set?
Yeah, it's leadership. Chicago builds great leaders. You can think about the people that we've had come here over the history of the country, right? From Harold Washington to Barack Obama. There's so many people, Michelle Obama, that have come out of this. Richard Wright, Lorraine Hansberry, younger folks like Kurt Summers, even like young dynamic leaders we got now, McCaffrey Cersei and Fortune House, like these dynamic young folk that are doing amazing things. We build really solid leaders who, when they go other places, they flourish, man. They do. I mean, it's not a surprise that Kendrick Lamar is not from here, but he talks about his roots from here. His grandparents are from here. You see it. It's woven through. Folks who spent time here on their journey. Jerry Lorenzo and Fair Guy, who used to go to my church, right? Like, was cultivated young talent here. Like, we touch every industry in some way. That's why I love Dilla. He talks about everything dope comes from Chicago. I believe that to be true.
I love that. I love that. You're working on so much stuff.
Yeah.
How can people get in contact with you?
Want to volunteer for Chicago Scholars? We always need you. ChicagoScholars.org. You can come see, take part in the work, help mentor a young person. And if you want to learn more about the startup, reachpathways.com. And you can sign up for free. 17 to 24-year-old students should sign up. Internships, jobs, scholarships, all in platform. Find your future on Reach.
I'm so excited about that. 2 more questions. What does inspire more life mean to you? What comes to mind when you hear that?
There's an element of joy and gratitude that I get from it. It's like bigger, bolder thinking. We talked earlier before the conversation started about how do you build something to scale. When I think about inspire more life, I think about being inspired to scale the joys of my life.
I love that. That's powerful. There's someone in this journey who's going after something creative, going after something entrepreneur, trying to align, and they're going through the rut of it, like the struggle, like it's not working, and they're not seeing the fruit, and they're not finding their community. Can you speak just directly into their process and a word of encouragement?
Yeah. So when we started building Reach, right, we did a bunch of accelerators and incubators. And the one quote that stood out to me when I was doing Black Ambition, Pharrell's accelerator was, our mentor said, 90% of startups fail, not because the idea is bad, not because the model's bad, not because people don't support it. 90% of startups fail because the founder quits. Look, out the gate, you may not have the best and brightest idea, but you can work it through. You can work through the model. You can work through the process. You can pivot. The question is whether or not you want to stick with it when it gets difficult, when there's water coming in the boat and you're trying to figure out how to bail this thing out. I've been very fortunate enough and blessed enough to have enough people around me to encourage me to stick with it, but also just the heartfelt gut and grit and resilience that comes from being from the city and being a kid from the South Side with the DNA that I have that has continued to push me to keep going. My thing to you is that if you really believe in it, keep going. Ask for help. Think about it. Take time, restructure, practice good health habits, but then keep going.
What I love about that is you're positioning everyone that they're their own business, they're their own founder, they are their own startup.
That's right.
And never give up on that process.
Yeah. You're the CEO of your life, right? It's a great book, Everyday Entrepreneurs, that speaks to that concept, treating your life like you're the CEO of your life.
I want to thank you for your time on this podcast, for
My
this
pleasure.
conversation.
My pleasure.
This is the Inspire More Life podcast.